Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the invisible forces that shape our government and really our everyday lives. We're going to pull back the curtain on the sociological basis of politics to explore exactly how the communities we live in interact with the powers that govern us. What we're exploring today is literally the ultimate chicken or the egg mystery of power. Think about it. Does society create politics, or do politics create society? We're going to figure out if our everyday social lives dictate our laws, or if the state actually dictates the very nature of our social lives. It's a fascinating loop, and we're going to break it all down.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap. We're going to cover power in society, the emergence of capitalism, a heavyweight clash between Marx and Tocqueville, elite theory, and finally, what political sociology actually means for us today.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Power in Society, the Invisible Web. You know, when we hear the word power, we usually picture politicians in suits passing laws, right? But it's actually so much more than that. Power operates dynamically within our everyday relationships. It's simply the ability of an individual or a group to achieve a course of action and implement decisions. This means power dynamics are playing out constantly in your family, inside religious organizations, at universities, and within local trade unions. And honestly, political sociology's main job is to study this exact phenomenon of power right at the social level.
To really wrap our heads around this, we need to look back at a crucial distinction made by early thinkers like St. Simon, Ferguson, and Hegel. They realized we had to completely separate civil society, which is our daily social and economic interactions, from the state, which is the actual, literal machinery of government. Separating the people from the entity governing them, that was a massive deal. It essentially set the stage for all of modern political science.
Moving right along to Section 2, the emergence of capitalism and a whole new world. So as the philosopher Hegel argued, the modern world birthed a completely new civil society that honestly just hadn't existed before. It was built from the ground up on the free market, property, and labor. Essentially, civil society became totally intertwined with what's called bourgeois society, a society driven by middle-class materialism and commerce. And to make this work, the legal system stepped up to secure property, creating an environment where people were finally free to organize for their own interests.
But as you might guess, this free market civil society wasn't perfect. It brought some heavy baggage. The system produced a simultaneous, interrelated growth of massive wealth right alongside deep poverty, and this intense social polarization inevitably led to social conflict. According to Hegel, civil society simply couldn't fix these issues on its own. It supposedly required the organized political power of the state to step in and manage the chaos.
Which perfectly sets the stage for Section 3. Think of this as the ultimate heavyweight bout, Marx versus Tocqueville.
In one corner, you've got Karl Marx. He argued that the state is entirely dependent on the economic base. For Marx, legal systems are rooted purely in material conditions, and it's class conflict, specifically the clash between the wealthy bourgeois owners and the working-class proletariat, that really drives politics. But over in the opposite corner, Alexis de Tocqueville took a totally different stance. Observing countries like France, England, and America, Tocqueville argued that politics has its own complete autonomy. He believed that democratic revolutions and the political process itself actually shaped the new industrial society, not the other way around.
Now, building on this idea that politics kind of runs its own show, we bring in the prominent thinker Max Weber. He pinpointed a really distinctive feature of political sociology. Weber noted that the concentration of the means of administration is parallel to the concentration of the means of production. In plain English, as factories and wealth concentrated economically, the state's administration and bureaucratic power concentrated in the exact same parallel way. That brings us to Section 4, elite theory, or the rule of the minority.
Okay, so elite theory, championed by thinkers like Mosca and Pareto, basically takes economics and throws it right out the window. It asserts that in absolutely all societies, an unequal distribution of talents is what dictates power. They argue that two classes will inevitably emerge no matter what. First, a powerful, organized minority class that performs political functions and monopolizes power, and second, a massive, unorganized majority class that is simply directed and controlled by the elites. They don't view this as some economic byproduct. They see it as an unalterable fact of human nature.
And to put another dent in the Marxist view, the thinker Karl Popper offered a pretty biting critique. He pointed out that if you strictly apply the Marxist theory, the idea that non-political forces determine absolutely everything about a society's transformation, well, you're basically saying that politics itself is completely impotent.
If politics is just a shadow of the economy, then political action is essentially meaningless. It's a huge paradox.
So how do we make sense of all these clashing ideas? That's our final stop. Section 5, Political Sociology Explained, the Modern Synthesis.
You've probably heard these terms tossed around interchangeably, but they are definitely not the same thing. The sociology of politics treats politics as a mere byproduct of society. It's a one-way street. It assumes any political action is just conditioned by your community, your class, or your religion. But political sociology, that treats them as completely interdependent. It's a two-way street. It acts as a cross-disciplinary bridge, acknowledging that social and political variables are constantly feeding into and changing one another.
Let's look at how this bridge actually functions in the real world. Political sociology doesn't just look at how a social variable, like class, gender, or region, affects a political outcome, like a party system. It looks at the whole feedback loop. For instance, in India, the politicization of caste didn't just affect elections, it actually turned around and simulated the social modernization process itself. The politics changed the society, just as much as the society changed the politics.
At the end of the day, political institutions are built on social structures. The stability of any regime depends heavily on those underlying social conditions. Because our political identities are so deeply rooted in social categories like class or ethnicity, massive historical shifts happen based on how a society is made up. Historically speaking, communism has flourished in societies with a massive base of unsatisfied lower classes. On the flip side, democracy tends to stabilize and grow in societies where power and resources are shared more evenly between different classes. The state is always a direct reflection of the society's balance.
So the big takeaway here is that society and the state are forever locked in this constant two-way loop of influence. One doesn't just create the other. They are perpetually creating each other. Which leaves us with one final thought based on everything we've uncovered today. Take a look at the world around you. In your society, how is power shared?